Gaza authorities report over 100 casualties after a new Israeli massacre targeted a gathering of starving Palestinians waiting for humanitarian aid packages at the Kuwait roundabout. The World Food Programme and the United Nations Organization said that Haiti is on the verge of a devastating famine crisis. And Russia reports 23.02% voter turnout on the first day of its presidential elections. Hello and welcome to From the South. My name is Belén de los Santos, and from the teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba, we begin with the news. Authorities have reported over 100 casualties and 200 injured after an Israeli airstrike targeted a gathering of starving Palestinians waiting for humanitarian aid packages at the Kuwait roundabout in southern Gaza. Civil Defense spokesperson Mahmoud Basal revealed that Israeli warplanes initially opened live fire at Palestinians waiting for the aid, and then the occupation artillery shelled the roundabout, committing the massacre. The casualties were transferred to 4 different hospitals in Gaza City and northern Gaza. Meanwhile, the Ministry of Health said that rescue missions to pull out individuals from underneath the rubble are still ongoing despite the difficulties and the danger on the field. In Palestine, humanitarian and human rights organizations reiterate their call to meet humanitarian needs as Gazans face a crisis-level hunger at the highest rate ever recorded by the Integrated Food Security Phase classification. Families have been drinking contaminated water for months and going days without food. In this regard, health authorities pointed out that at least 20 children have died recently from severe malnutrition and dehydration and related illnesses. In turn, the Israeli regime continues to prevent humanitarian access while aid airdrops are taking place over the area that does not meet the demand of the 2.3 million people in a catastrophic situation of survival. Meanwhile, citizens of the town of Han Yunis, south of the Gaza Strip, on Tuesday denounced the total devastation of one of their neighborhoods as a result of the total Israeli siege. In this way, the Gaza citizens lamented the destruction of their homes as they were able to return to them after the withdrawal of the occupation forces from the Hamad neighborhood. Meanwhile, the Palestinian Red Crescent Society reported that its teams managed to recover the bodies of 15 martyrs in the area. It should be noted that after 161 days of genocide in the Gaza Strip, the number of Palestinians killed by Israel has risen to 31,774 and more than 73,000 wounded, mostly children and women.
Soy Abu Samer Fedjani.
I am Abu Samer Fetiani, from the city of Hamad, from Tower 7. We went out. They just took us out, threatening us with invasion and a belt of fire. We went out through the road to Halaba, and we came back 10 days later. What is this? The city was not like this. We are peaceful people. We are civilians, and they know it very well. And this is happening to us. Is this the program of the State of Israel? Like this? First, the planes came in to cover the tanks that raided Hamad. They dropped stun bombs. Those bombs were worse than missiles. They caused riots and panic. We all gathered in our apartment on the first floor. When it was done, they ordered us to leave with a megaphone, to all leave Hamad. They dropped leaflets. Then they said no, don't go out, which calmed us down. And then they said, everyone to leave for Asda. They had set up checkpoints there. We had to evacuate just like that, without taking anything with us.
And on the first Friday of Ramadan, Israeli occupation forces prevented thousands of worshippers from reaching the Al-Aqsa Mosque. The occupation forces were deployed extensively around the checkpoints of Kalandiya in the north of Jerusalem, Zaytuna in the east, and Bethlehem to the south. The agents turned back thousands of worshippers and did not allow them to reach the Al-Aqsa Mosque under the pretext of not obtaining the necessary permits. They also prevented all the medical teams of Jerusalem institutions from entering the mosque and attacked several of them. Meanwhile, in Palestine, President Mahmoud Abbas appointed Mohammad Mustafa as the country's prime minister amid a critical situation in the Gaza Strip. During his appointment, the head of state appointed the new prime minister to draw up plans to reunify the administration in the occupied West Bank and Gaza, in addition to focusing solutions on reforms in government security, services, the economy, and corruption. Mustafa, who replaces Mohammed Stayeh, was chairman of the Palestinian Investment Fund and economic advisor to President Abbas. A meeting between Fatah and Hamas is expected to take place this week in the Russian capital, Moscow. Now let's take a short break, but remember, you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you will find news in different formats, news updates, and much more. Other stories coming up. Stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. The World Food Programme and the United Nations Organization said that Haiti is on the verge of a devastating famine crisis. The agency's country director, Jean-Martin Barrot, explained at a press conference that gangs control access to Port-au-Prince by road, disrupting the food supply chain. The food emergency affects more than 1.4 million people as the population reduces the quantity of food and what they consume is also of poor quality. The agency also announced that it is preparing supplies for distribution in Port-au-Prince despite the social instability that the city is experiencing.
Baseline level of food insecurity.
The basic level of food insecurity in Haiti is 4.35 million people. That's a huge number for a country of 11 million people, a huge number. WFP has been helping about 2 million of them. Last year, we reached 2 million people with the essential food assistance. We are giving priority to the most vulnerable. The ones I am most concerned about are the 1.4 million people who are one step away from starvation. So we focus our resources on that group. And within that group, the most vulnerable are displaced.
In this context, the United Nations planned to set up an air bridge between Haiti and the Dominican Republic to get more aid into the crisis-wrecked Caribbean island and to transfer its personnel. The United Nations missions in Haiti said that the air bridge would ensure a seamless delivery of humanitarian aid and support services to Haiti, as well as facilitate the movement of its own personnel in and out of the country. According to the UN Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs, more than 400 incidents hampering aid access have been recorded across the country since the start of 2024, including more than 70 only in the first week of March. We go now to Mexico, where President Andrés Manuel López Obrador, during a government morning press conference from Baja California, evaluated and praised the improvements of the Mexicali city in matters of economy, security, and social guarantees. At the press conference were present, among other attendants, Marina del Pilar Ávila, Baja California Governor, and Luis Crescendo Sandoval, National Defense Secretary. The head of state also encouraged the tribute to the national historical memory and to the extensive culture of the country. One of the main subjects of the statements was the role of the family as a protective factor against drug addiction. President Obrador also showed his concern about the fentanyl consumption in the U.S.
Si nos pudiera comentar un poco más de cómo
are suffering because of drug use, which is a pandemic. The use of fentanyl, which unfortunately leads to the loss of 100 young people every year, and among other factors. We believe that it has to do with the fact that young people have to leave their families at an early age, something that does not happen in our country.
In Argentina, a few meters away from the Congress, police repressed a demonstration against the layoffs at the National Institute of Cinema and Audiovisual Arts. By means of a large repressive operation, members of the police of the city of Buenos Aires attacked hundreds of people who were protesting in front of the historic Gaumont Cinema located in the 2 Congress Square. The agents used tear gas and pepper gas to produce the repression. The peaceful protest, led by union organizations of Inca workers, documentary filmmakers, artists, and actors, denounced the serious underfunding of the sector, the dismissal of at least 138 people in the last few days, and the intention to close the centenary Gaumont Cinema.
There have been a lot of productions stopped since the government started, and it will continue like this for a while. And now what they are saying is that they want to sell the Gaumont Cinema. They want to cut everything related to festivals. They want there to be no more festivals. They want to cut the Mar del Plata Film Festival, Historical, Ventana Sur, and all the festivals financed by Inca want to reduce it.
In other news, at least 52 people were reported dead and 5 missing in Bolivia due to heavy rains, while the red alert remains in effect due to the danger of flooding. The Meteorological Monitoring Service assured that precipitations would continue until March 23rd, so it is necessary to maintain preventive measures. The Bolivian Minister of Defense, Edmundo Novillo, regretted the damage caused by the Rio Grande near Montero Hoyos in the department of Santa Cruz. For his part, the head of state, Luis Arce, gave instructions to undertake a reconstruction and rehabilitation plan for the areas affected by disasters in La Paz and the rest of the country. And we have now a final short break coming up. But before, we invite you to join our WhatsApp community for our English-speaking audience. You can scan the QR code on screen to join directly and also share the link to reach more people. Constant news coverage of Latin America and the Caribbean, as well as the rest of the world. Stay connected and informed with teleSUR. Final short break. Don't go away. Welcome back to From the South. In Russia, 23.02% voter turnout has been reported on the first day of presidential elections. The Central Election Commission has compared this turnout data with that of the 2018 elections, which was 16.55% at noon in Moscow. More than 1.5 million people voted remotely. On the other hand, polling stations will be open until 8 p.m. local time, ending with the presidential election on March 17th.
We want our country to have a bright future, to be democratic, and to be friends with the whole world. We see our president at work, and we support him in his actions. We want everything to go well in all aspects of life, social, economic, and commercial.
The Russian Central Election Commission reported that more than 2.5 million Russians have already voted abroad. Likewise, the Commission's remote electronic voting portal indicated that the figure represented 53% of the number of those registered to vote remotely. The number is expected to increase by the closing of the presidential elections on March 17th. And on Friday, Ela Pamfilova, chairwoman of the Russian Central Election Commission, noted that from February 25th to March 14th, more than 2.3 million people voted early in the presidential elections. In this connection, it is good to note that the 2024 elections included the regions of Donetsk and Lugansk People Republic, Zaporizhia, and Kherson. On the other hand, the Electoral Authority noted that in addition to more than 1,000 polling stations in Russia, 295 polling stations will be open abroad in 144 countries. In this sense, 4 candidates are running for president, including current leader Vladimir Putin, who is running as an independent and also is the favorite in the polls. We move on to other topics now. At least 60 migrants died after a rubber dinghy ran into trouble in the Mediterranean Sea trying to reach Europe from Libya. According to the humanitarian group SOS Mediterranean, 25 survivors were rescued by the ocean Viking vessel in cooperation with Italian coast guards. The survivors told their rescuers they had set off from Zawiya on the Libyan coast several days before the tragedy. It was not immediately clear how the 60 people lost their lives, and according to the United Nations International Organization for Migration, 3,105 migrants died or were reported missing on 2023, attempting to cross the Mediterranean to Europe. Chadian candidates for the presidential election on May the 6th are submitting their candidatures to the Constitutional Council. The civilian prime minister of the military junta in Chad, Success Masra, and the transitional president, General Mahamat Idris Deby Itno, have already announced their candidacies. Chad's junta-appointed prime minister announced Sunday that he would contest presidential elections set for May the 6th, just days after incumbent General Mahamat Idris Deby Itno announced his own candidacy. Success Masra, a former opposition leader, returned from exile and signed a reconciliation deal with Deby Itno before becoming premier this year. Masra, who is age 40, unveiled his election bid at a campaign meeting attended by hundreds of supporters of his Transformers Party. In Senegal, opposition leader Ousmane Sonko and presidential candidate Bassirou Diomaye Faye were released from prison following the approval of a general amnesty law. A crowd of Senegalese celebrated in front of the house of political leader Ousmane Sonko in Dakar. Both leaders were released from prison on Thursday afternoon in the Senegalese capital 10 days before the elections. This after last week the National Assembly approved an amnesty law condoning crimes committed since 2021 during anti-government protests. The presidential elections will be held next March 24th after strong demonstrations against the attempt of President Macky Sall to postpone the polls. In Tunisia, at least 35 people were injured after an explosion at an oil depot in the cities of Rats, near the capital. The spokesman of the civil protection of the country informed that among the injured, 4 of them are in serious condition and 19 others with first and second degree injuries. The incident was caused by a gas leak, which caused several gas cylinders to explode during a filling operation of the Tunisian National Oil Distribution Company. The fire department arrived at the warehouse with 10 trucks to dissipate the fire, together with 8 ambulances to transfer the wounded to the hospital. And in other news, the Copacabana Palace, a century-old landmark hotel in Rio de Janeiro, with an all-white facade, has been given a new face with colored windows covered in layers of vinyl in yellows, blues, pinks, greens, and reds that now light up the building on the Brazilian beach. In this work and creation by French artist Daniel Buren is on display through September. In his new intervention, the visual effect changes throughout the day depending on the exposure of the vinyls to light. In addition to the hundreds window of the iconic facade, Buren also intervened the pergola at the main entrance, which projects a chromatic carpet into the ground. This work at the Copacabana Palace, which celebrated 100th anniversary last year, is the second in a series entitled Colorful Stops at the luxury hotel chain Belmond, owned by French giant LVMH. And like this, we have come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. And also join us on social media. We are on Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and also TikTok. For teleSUR English, my name is Belen de los Santos. Thank you for watching.